Yeah, that's a blue gem, and it really only took like 2 cribs on it.
Let's go. Another episode, Blue Gems podcast with my man, Mark Lumpkin from STR Cribs. Pleasure to have you,
What's
man.
up, guys?
How's
Yeah,
it going?
likewise. Thanks
So
for having me on. Excited.
STR Cribs, it sounds pretty dope. Could you share a little bit about what STR Cribs is?
Yeah, man, we're a fully licensed design and renovation company focused specifically on short-term rentals. And I think that like the name is really fitting because you remember the show MTV Cribs? We do the same stuff, man. We call it cribitizing your property, where we just come in and create a badass short-term rental experience with all the stuff that your competition doesn't have. So amenities, pool tables, pickleball courts, hot tubs, saunas, game rooms, neon signs, badass designs. That's what we do. And I think it's really different and unique to the market. So we're excited to help people create cool homes.
Love that. It's amazing. Is that one of your properties that you guys did in your background?
Yeah, this is, man. This is a garage conversion, actually. So This was a 2-car garage, which, let's be honest, in most short-term rentals, your garage is totally wasted space. We increased occupancy by 6 or 4 on this one, did built-in bunk beds, slides, added a game room. So you turn space, you add 4 to your occupancy, you create a really cool additional amenity with a game room. And to be honest, the slides are super cool. And any kid who sees this house is going to want his parents to book this place. So it's definitely something that pops off the screen.
That's incredible. And for the listeners that don't have a visual, if you guys want to tune into strcribs.com, check out some of their work. It's literally outstanding. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been super fun. We've set up a little over 500 short-term rentals in the last 4 years across about 30 different markets. And so we can really get anywhere you need us to. And we're looking forward to doing the next 500. So
what made you want to get into STR Renovations? How'd you get started?
yeah, that's a good question. I think really like anyone's story, mine is similar, where I just kind of fell into it. I've been an avid short-term rental traveler and Airbnb user for probably like 10 or 11 years. Me and my wife had done a bunch of traveling internationally in our 20s. And we started out like thinking we were going to stay at hostels and we were going to couch surf and we're going to do all that kind of that typical, young traveler backpacker lifestyle. And we quickly found out we're like, all right, we're like 25 and we have a little bit of money and this is a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds and we're sharing bunk bedrooms. This is not for us. We thought if we romanticized it, we thought it was going to be cool. We're like, we've got to like pivot here. And so we tried hotels for a couple countries and it just like, I don't know. Let's be honest, man. Hotels just suck. It's just a bed in a dark room and you have a toilet and a sink. And so we looked for alternative kind of accommodations. We fell in love with Airbnbs and we've stayed in Airbnbs ever since. And so that was like our origin story of how we kind of fell in love with the short-term rental world. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I had a friend who had a Airbnb startup and he asked me to jump in and help out on kind of the marketing, sales, business development side. And it ended up turning into a design company. And I've been along for the ride ever since.
That's amazing. And let's rewind just a little bit. Like, what's your background? Like before you got into STRs and in this space, what were you doing before?
Yeah, I was doing really just kind of the same thing in different industries. So I had been doing sales, marketing, and business development. I was in the automotive space. I was in cannabis for a handful of years, working for a startup that had 5 farms and about 4 products on the shelf in the state of Oregon. And believe it or not, I have driven, this is like a crazy story of my life, but I have driven 10,000 pounds of weed up Interstate I-5 to a wholesale distributor that we sold to. So I've sold over 10,000 pounds of weed to one customer at one time. And I felt like Pablo Escobar. I mean, I was in a U-Haul truck, a 35-foot U-Haul with 10,000 pounds of weed in the back of this thing, driving up the interstate all by myself. Totally legal. And like 50, the giant contractor black trash bags completely full, just the whole truck. So I've had an interesting life, and it's always really just been in helping startups kind of grow their business and build strategic partnerships, things like that.
That's a story. You're definitely the only person in the world that I've ever talked to that has that story. That's great.
Yeah, or at least it will tell you that story, because everyone else has done it illegally.
Right, for sure. Absolutely. Love it.
So you've been in a few different industries. What do you like about the hospitality industry overall?
Yeah, I definitely love to travel. And so going and seeing new places is really what I enjoy about the hospitality industry. And I like real estate too. Like, I just like houses and how every house is unique and a little bit different. And so being able to see all kinds of different homes all over the country is really, I think, my favorite thing about the space.
And I think design has been around for a lot of years, but STR design is kind of a newer concept. So share some of the differences between traditional interior design and then short-term rental, cribitizing, as you would call it.
Yeah, they're very different, quite frankly. I would say that you'd never want to design a short-term rental how you'd want to design your own home. And unfortunately, for most of the folks in the industry, that's how they think about design. Like, they look at their property as their second home or someplace they'd want to stay. And they really take that mindset and approach to the design and set it up like this. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, "Oh, but I just love the way this house looks. It feels so warm and cozy, and it's just how I'd set up my house." And I'm like, that's great, guys. This is not your house. This is an investment property, and this is a vacation rental. And we're going to take a very different approach. We're going to use really bright colors. We're going to use neon signs. We're going to use unique wallpaper. We're going to do things that just pop off the screen and do what I call it, stop the scroll, right? In most markets, you guys are from Orlando, there's so much competition, and I can scroll through pages and pages and pages on Airbnb. I'm looking for something that rips off the screen and gets me to stop scrolling, click on it, look through a few photos, and then you've got me. And you've got to do that with a really bright, unique, different style. It's not what you would do in your own house.
And like, people will pay for an experience, right? So like, if they are designing their second home or vacation home similar to how their primary residence is, there's not much difference from an experience standpoint, right? Versus like the two slides in the photo behind you, it's like you don't have that at your disposal at your primary residence. So to be able to afford to charge the guests a premium, you have to give them a different experience that they can, otherwise have when they're just staying at their primary.
100%. People will definitely pay a premium for a property that gives them a unique experience. And quite frankly, I think that guests are actually more and more looking for the property to be part of the vacation. And if you think about it, there's no stats out there on this, but my assumption is that if you go on vacation for 5 days, you probably spend more time in the house that you rented than you spend outside of the home doing the activities in that city that you went to visit. And so thinking about that, you're like, wow, they're going to spend more time in my house than they're going to spend outside of the home on vacation. Then the home itself is the vacation and is the experience. If you set your property up with that in mind, knowing that they're going to spend a lot more time in your house, then you're going to be so much different than everyone else. People are going to want to book your house because they know, hey, I'm going to be in this house for 15, 20 hours a day. There better be some fun, cool stuff for us to do while we're there. Otherwise, it's no different than us just being in our house where we're at right now.
Absolutely. I'll actually piggyback on that. So there's this interesting stat. So they did a survey of children under 12 years old. I think there was like 1,000 of them in this survey. And they said, hey, out of your 5-day vacation to Disney World, what was your favorite part of it? Was it visiting Epcot? Was it taking photos with Minnie Mouse? Was it this certain ride? What was it? And you know what the number one thing was across the board?
The house they were staying in?
It was the pool in their backyard. That was their favorite part of their Disney World trip. And you got to think about from the family standpoint, they're probably spending like $10,000 for 5 days in Disney World with a family of five. And they're like, wait, you enjoyed just the pool in the backyard? So to your point, if you can really create an experience and what they've done in Disney is just wild. So for people that are listening, if you haven't seen some of these Disney World properties, go on to Airbnb, type in Kissimmee or Davenport and check out some of these properties. But the point is, they're actually trying to bring the magic from Disney World and implement it into a property. So it's like an extension of Disney World that they're creating. So I'm super fascinated by design. So I would love having you on here to kind of talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah. And I think it goes past Disney World, right? Where Disney World is what we're talking about on steroids. And there might be listeners who are like, oh, I don't have property in Disney World. I don't have property in Phoenix, Arizona. It doesn't really matter. And I would beg to differ. Is when you look at any markets, there's a reason people are traveling to that market. They're going to be staying in the home. We just did some really cool, I was showing you guys before we started recording, properties in Nashville, which is a bachelorette themed property. That property is absolutely crushing it because there's a demographic of people that are traveling to that city and they really stand out from their competition because that home is an experience and enhances that vacation. And so I love that. That's so interesting that the number one thing was the pool in the backyard. And it probably would be for me too, because Disney World's like stressful, man. You're surrounded by people, your kids are screaming, your feet hurt.
The lines are long.
The best part.
Yeah, the lines are long. It's super hot. They're exhausted. They're dehydrated. I mean, it's just versus like you're in the AC and like you're running downstairs playing video games and jumping into the pool and then eating pizza in the AC again. I mean, way more chill environment.
Yeah. Way more. So that's awesome.
You need a vacation from the vacation. We also haven't mentioned, separating ourselves from the hotel industry. Because to your earlier point, I mean, if you're really trying to stand out, you don't want to have the same product as the Marriott. And how do you do that, right? You have a different experience for the guest.
Yeah, and you can't compete with the hotel industry, right? So I see the future of short-term rentals really going this direction, which is really cool experiences, large homes, families traveling, groups traveling together. And I just don't think that, short-term rental space started with an air mattress and an extra bedroom in the house. And I don't think that's where we're going to be in 10 years. Quite frankly, I don't even think Airbnb will allow shared spaces in 10 years. I think that you'll only be able to rent the whole property. And you can't compete with the hotel industry based on density. Like they have 100 rooms in one building and you have to send a cleaner all across town to get to your 3 different properties and pay those turnovers and those cleaning fees. So I think that positioning yourself as an investor and an owner in the short-term rental space with that in mind is really going to give you a leg up, and starting to create these unique experiences now are even more so what people are going to be looking for in the future.
And then if I'm an investor, right, kind of going off of that point, what should I be looking for, right? Say I want to hire STR Cribs and I really want to create a unique experience. What are some of the things I should be looking out for? Maybe bedroom count, location. What do you find to be the most important?
Yeah, I mean, you guys could probably speak on location better than anyone because you're killer property managers. I would say for us, we're looking at unused spaces, houses. So where is there extra square footage that could be utilized? Maybe that's a second dining room. You don't need 2 dining rooms. We can use that as a game room space or a pool table. Maybe there's an unfinished garage that can be tapped into. Bedrooms definitely come into play. Those 4 or 5 bedroom properties do so much better than those 2, 3 bedroom properties. And then if you can get a property with a lot of outside space, a big backyard, you can really jam pack some high ROI amenities into it. If you buy a property on the side of a hill or with a tiny backyard, you're going to limit yourself to what you implement there. And so that's really what I would look for.
Speaking of amenities, what are some of the highest performing amenities that you're seeing, or maybe another way to think about it is like, what are some of the most cost effective amenities that people can add and kind of get a good ROI on their property?
Yeah. 2 questions there. The first one is, what are the best amenities? That's very market and property specific. Like we know we're all Florida residents here. Having a hot tub in the back of your property in Florida really does, I mean, the whole state is a hot tub. You just have to sit on your back porch and you're in a hot tub. Um, it's not a high ROI driving amenity. But if you're in like Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge, man, you better have a hot tub or you're not going to be able to compete, right? And so what amenities you should do are super specific to the market and to the property you have, as well as what your competition is doing. What I like to just kind of touch on is some quick, easy amenities that you can do at a low cost that I think really improve properties. One is full length mirrors. They don't cost but a few $100s, and they're a great amenity to have in your bedrooms. They get rid of that corner that has nothing in it. 99% of women want a property to have a full length mirror in it. And let's be honest, like 85% of us guys want a full length mirror to make sure we look okay before you leave the house. Super easy amenity. I love those paid style games. And thinking about statistics, right now, millennials are the largest group of people traveling around the United States. And as a millennial myself, I think that those arcade games are super nostalgic. I just remember being a kid, my mom giving me $5, going down to the arcade, getting a pocket full of quarters and spending hours at the arcade playing games. And so for me, it's got a lot of nostalgia. I think it does for a lot of other millennials, and we're the biggest traveling group. And then it's just like, they're like $500 and they just kind of can take an empty corner or a bedroom that was plain and boring and really kind of amplify it, throw a couple of arcade games in there, and they're just fun for everyone. So those would be a few like cheap, inexpensive amenities I think anyone could implement today.
I love it.
Let's
If you need a pickleball court though, let us know, because pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. And that's a little bit harder to add to your house.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the pickleball courts that you guys have implemented in some of the properties. They're just literally incredible.
Yeah, it's the fastest growing sport in America. If you look in any city in the US and find like the local YMCA or the local sports club that has pickleball courts for rent, and just look at the calendar. And it's like, dude, they're not, you can't even rent a pickleball court for like a week or two, and they're going to charge you anywhere from like $50 to $100 an hour to go play pickleball. And so there's a shortage of courts. There's certainly very few properties that have them in their backyard. And it's definitely a way to differentiate yourself.
How do you tell which of those opportunities, let's use the example of a pickleball court, are here to stay versus those that are a fad? I'm thinking of like those greenery walls that everyone was doing a couple of years ago. Like some things tend to be trends and some things are here for the long haul. How do you figure that out as an STR designer?
That's a good question. Design is very subject to change. And I think you're right. Design fads come and go. And so maybe the colors or the neon signs or the murals or things like that will eventually go out of style, and something else will kind of replace them and you'll need to update. As far as hard amenities, I have a hard time believing that hard amenities are fads and ever go out of style. And so I think of like hot tubs in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And 10 years ago, it was a really cool amenity to have a hot tub in your property. And now it's a checkbox amenity. If you don't have a hot tub in one of those cabins, like, you are the outlier. Everyone has a hot tub in those cabins. And so the hot tub wasn't a fad. The hot tub was here to stay, and it's actually just a standard for all those properties in cabin markets. I think we'll start to see the same thing happen with some of the amenities we're doing today. Playgrounds, mini golf courts, pickleball, outdoor bowling, fire pits. Today, those are really cool standout amenities. And in the future, they might just be checkbox amenities that if you don't have them, you can't compete in this space. I don't think they're going anywhere. I don't think in 10 years, anyone is not going to want to play pickleball or shoot basketball hoops on the basketball hoop in the backyard.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've gotten this question before, but what are your thoughts around saturation, right? We hear all the time that Airbnb is dead, markets are getting saturated, it's getting too competitive. Obviously, you guys are raising the bar with your design, with your amenities, but what are your thoughts on saturation overall?
It's a good question. You guys are probably in those Facebook groups like me and part of the companies that help people sell short-term rentals. Do you ever see properties for sale that you look at them and go, wow, that's an amazing short-term rental. It's beautifully designed, has a lot of amenities? No, no one ever sells those properties. Well, why don't they sell those properties? They don't sell those properties because they're crushing it and killing it with ROI. The people that sell short-term rentals are people that have IKEA furniture and like a $100 Walmart foosball table in the garage, and that's their short-term rental, right? Like, people sell underperforming short-term rentals, and people who are saying it's oversaturated, I can't make any money. That's right. You can't make any money today because you're still thinking about the short-term rental market as it was 5 years ago. And you haven't stepped your game up when the whole market has stepped their game up. So I would say, yes, it's oversaturated for people that are underperforming and not delivering a great product. But for those folks that are investing in their home and being strategic, they are absolutely crushing it. And they're not selling those properties because they're making good money.
Love it. I know earlier you mentioned a common mistake that investors are making is just kind of like designing their property the way that they would like to experience it. What are some other common mistakes that you're seeing investors make when they're getting into this industry?
Definitely, I would say the quality of the items that they put in their house. I see folks put really, really low quality items in the home. Things end up breaking. You have really uncomfortable couches and guests are complaining. You've got to replace stuff quickly. And so if you go too cheap, you're going to set yourself up for failure. On the opposite end, if you go really high end luxury with a lot of your items and you have a $10,000 white Pottery Barn couch in your living room. Well, I have 2 little kids. And if I see that in your listing, I'm not going to book your house because I just know that my kids are going to stain and destroy that couch. I don't want to pay for it. So it's like, I see some people go way too high luxurious and I see some people go way too low end on the cheap, and they don't find that kind of happy medium where you have good quality furniture that lasts, looks nice, but isn't too expensive. What other mistakes do I see? I don't know. I'd say that's a big one. The quality is a big one. Really not investing in thinking about renovations and furnishing and design as an after fact. I would say that is actually the biggest mistake. People go into the property thinking about it as you're a real estate investor. And so they're thinking about the price of the home, the potential appreciation. Hang on a second. My headphones died on me. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All good.
Do we want to restart that so you can edit that out?
Yeah, you can. You can pick it up right now. Be good.
Okay, cool. I would say the biggest mistake that I see people make is not thinking about the furniture, design, amenities on the front end, and they think about it very much on the back end as an afterthought. And so they're calculating the purchase price, down payment, closing, how much it's going to cost them for property management, how much their hard costs are going to be with electricity, water, all that stuff. And then they forget to leave adequate amount of money in their budget for setting up the property. And, I'm obviously biased, but I would say you're better off buying an $800,000 house, investing $200,000 in the renovations, amenities, and furniture, than buying $1 million house and investing $20,000 in those things. You're going to have higher ROI and more revenue. So try to think about it on the front end, not as an afterthought.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. What we found, and this is evident by really reviewing any P&L for a short-term rental, most of the costs are pretty fixed, right? So your electrical is going to be the same whether you have a slide in your garage or not. So if you would think about it, if you want to make the highest net profit, you should focus on increasing your revenue, not driving down your expenses. And I think a lot of people forget that only certain things actually drive revenue. So, buying 2 different types of couches is not really going to move the needle, but focusing on an STR design strategy that actually improves revenue basically goes straight into your bottom line because your costs aren't going up.
Oh, 100%. And you guys know this is a cost heavy business, right? You can't get rid of those hard costs. You got to do the maintenance. You got to cover the electricity bill, and God, that electricity bill in Florida gets high sometimes. And it's like, lowering your expenses is just not an option. So you've got to increase your revenue. And how do you do that? Well, you do that with a very unique property that has a lot of cool amenities.
Yeah, and we have this conversation all the time with our owners and clients and investors who really they either come from a long-term rental or a multifamily background where there is a lot of emphasis on driving down expenses. But what we try to say, the difference in the STR space is that you can actually improve revenue dramatically in comparison to a long-term rental where you have 2-3 bedrooms, one's down the street. It's basically going to earn the same amount of revenue. But what we found, and I'm curious to get your input, is that you could have 2 properties on the same street. One can be doing double or triple the revenue as the neighbor based on design and amenities, and then also operations and who's actually managing that property.
Oh, absolutely. There's not been a truer statement made today, which is that you can have 2 properties in the exact same market. They could be next door neighbors, and one of them could do $100,000 in revenue, and one of them could do $200,000 in revenue. And the reason is, one, what we do on the front end, which is one might have an amazing design, great amenities, maybe some additional occupancy because they took advantage of some space that the other property didn't. And then the next biggest key is who's managing that property, and are they doing a good job, and are they marketing it well, and are they taking care of the turnover and the cleans? And so what you guys do is definitely a direct reflection on someone's potential revenue. And if you mismanage a home, you're not going to make any money. And if you manage a home really well, you can make a lot of money.
What are maybe some untapped opportunities that you're seeing in the design space? Like, so maybe 2 years ago, a pickleball court was like, whoa, I didn't see this one coming, right? What are you seeing, maybe some new future trends on the horizon?
I would say that I'm seeing the opportunity for some hyper-focused properties on the avatar of who's traveling to that market. So if I'm going to Nashville, Tennessee, maybe it's a bachelorette party home. If I'm going to, Scottsdale, Arizona, where there's spring training and a bunch of baseball games and things like that, maybe it's a baseball themed property. Those are some kind of examples, but really breaking down who's coming to your market, why they're coming, how many of them are coming, where they're coming from, and then designing a property specifically for that guest avatar, which no one's really doing, right? If you grabbed every short-term rental listing, 80% of them would fall between these 2 lines where they're all very, very similarly designed, furnished, and amenitized. And if you can get a property that stands outside of those lines and is really hyper-focused on who's coming to your market, I think you're going to crush it in the future. And then, today we're talking about pickleball and mini golf and bowling, and I'm excited and curious to see where that conversation goes over the next few years and what different amenities, games, entertainment are offered. But I guess only time will tell that.
Yeah, I mean, like if you just go on to Airbnb, you can see where things are trending, right? The experiences that they have now, it's like the up house with all the balloons, the blockbuster home, Professor X's house. I mean, it's crazy. Like, and to your point, right? Like people are really willing to pay for that experience, that one of one. All of those homes are like sold out. You can't even book them. It's really in high demand. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the future for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that there's so much saturation in certain markets where you have the same listing over and over and over again, right? You have, you go to Broken Bow and you look at all those homes and they all look exactly the same. So I can't preach this enough. It's like, don't go to Broken Bow and set up another cabin that looks just like every other cabin because you don't doing anything different or special. So how could you expect different results?
100%. So I'm convinced that design and amenities matter. How can I move forward with STR Cribs? What does the process look like?
So you can reach out to me a couple ways. I'll share my email with you guys. You can drop it in the show notes. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can follow me, DM me. Doesn't cost you anything to talk to me. There's no requirements or guarantees. We're happy to give as much free advice as we can. And we really just want to help elevate the industry. And I'm a big believer that a rising tide lifts all boats. And as if we can all do a little bit better with our properties and with our property management and with our guest experience, I think that as a whole, that improves all of our investments and our quality of life. So yeah, shoot me an email, send me a DM on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to jump on a call and help anybody I can.
Incredible.
And then, so I know we touched on it just a little bit, but like, where do you see the market trending in the next 5 to 10 years? We talked a lot about experiences and, a plethora of other things. What do you see happening in the next 5, 10 years?
Well, one, I think that shared properties are going to be gone. I don't think Airbnb is going to let you rent a room anymore. I think that's gone. I think that the small properties, the 1-bedroom, 2-bath properties are really going to get gobbled up by hotels. And I know when you talk to people in the short-term rental space, and even when you talk to people in the hotel space, they're always kind of like passive aggressive, like, oh, we're not competing with hotels. I'm like, yes, you are. And the hotel's like, oh, we're not competing with short-term rentals. I'm like, yes, you are. You guys are 100% in competition. I think that the unique experiences, the larger homes that accommodate groups and families are going to really crush it in the short-term rental space. And I think that the hotel industry is going to basically destroy the shared rooms, the single bedroom condos, things like that, because they have density, because they have scale. And the individual property owners are not going to be able to compete on a price level with hotels if you have a 1-bedroom house. And it's just not going to happen. That's where I see it going.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Love it.
How much it's evolved, right? I love your point around starting with a shared space and a mattress, because it is true. And, in basically 15 years, we've come so far. And I think that trend will continue to happen.
For sure. Yeah. It's like technology, right? I mean, it evolves so quickly year over year. And if you had shown some of the properties that we have today to the founders of Airbnb 15 years ago, when they were blowing up an air mattress in an empty room and throwing it on the floor, and they're like, yeah, dude, this is what this is going to evolve into, they would have never believed you. And I think the same thing is true in 10 or 15 years from now. We look back and talk to ourselves, we wouldn't believe where it's going to be, but it's definitely going to evolve and change. And if you're not staying on top of those trends, it's going to be really hard for you to compete in this space.
I love it. Maybe we can get into the formal questions, Aiden. Kick us off.
Yeah. So first one is, what does a day in the life look like for Mark Lumpkin?
I live quite an unusual lifestyle from like a work perspective. And I don't think that this is for everyone, but I'm of the mindset that I'm always working, but also never working. And I obviously I work remote, so I'm at home. I I know like all the gurus say don't do this, but man, the first thing I do when I wake up is I'm triaging my phone. So literally laying in bed, responding to emails, text messages, Slack messages, looking at da-da-da-da-da-da. And I work for an hour, hit the gym. Then I make my kids breakfast, spend a little time with them. I'm back to work during the day doing meetings, Zoom calls, presentations, podcasts with cool people like you guys. And then I'm out of the office for a couple hours in the evening, making some dinner, hanging out with the kids, doing something fun, going getting ice cream, putting them to bed. And then I'm back to my computer. So if me and my wife are watching a movie on Netflix, I'm actually sitting there working. And I don't know, it just kind of allows me to live the lifestyle I want to, where if I want to take a break in the middle of the day and go take the kids to the trampoline park for an hour or two, I can do that. I was literally on a call the other day at the trampoline park, jumping up and down with my kids with my headphones in, closing a deal. I'm like panting a little bit. It's like, what are you doing? I was like, dude, I'm at the trampoline park, man. I'm sorry. This just is what it is. And so I don't know, man. I live an unusual life. I'm kind of always working, but never working at the same time.
Wow. Love that. And you mentioned a little bit about your personal portfolio, I think, right before the show. Share with us the experience of that first deal.
Yeah. I would say the first deal was pretty smooth. New construction house. We did all the renovations, design, all that stuff. Obviously ourselves, we used one of our interior designers to do all the design work and then put it together because it was local to our primary residence. Since then, we're super hosts. My wife runs our day-to-day operations. She can obviously do that just because it's 2 properties. Once you start to scale, that's obviously not on the table because it becomes a lot harder after you have a few, as you guys know. But the first deal's gone really, really smooth. We've had a great ROI. We've had great guests. We don't really have any horror stories. I know that it seems like every host does have horror stories. We don't. We're pretty selective about the people that we let stay in our home. We're a request to book. We're in a beach town right by a golf course, so we kind of have some really advantages on location wise. And it's just been a great experience. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the no horror stories is especially rare. My second guest was a convicted felon, and he actually stole my television, and I had to buy it back from the pawn shop. True story. Second guest.
Oh my gosh, I'm probably going to jinx myself, right? My next guest is probably going to be the worst horror story of all times. So I probably shouldn't have said that out loud, but it's been pretty smooth.
And it was here live on the show. Awesome. JB?
Yeah. If you could leave one last gem, it could be about business, design, STR, or life in general. What would you want to leave? One last gem.
All right, here's my last gem. I was walking through a really famous cemetery in Savannah, Georgia the other day. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a huge cemetery. There's thousands and thousands of people buried there. There's like literal statues and monuments for people that were super wealthy. And what I noticed is that on none of the headstones, didn't matter how big the statue was or how small the headstone was, nowhere did it say entrepreneur, real estate investor, founder, millionaire, world traveler. The only thing that all of those headstones said was beloved mother, beloved father, friend, husband, wife. That's it on every single headstone. So no matter how much money these people have accomplished or how much fame, wealth that they've accumulated over the course of their life, when they died, the only thing that they wanted on their headstone was beloved mother, beloved father, husband, wife. So I took that as like just a sign of that no matter what we're doing day to day and how busy we get with work and all this stuff, it really doesn't matter because we're all going to die. And the only thing that people care about when they die is that their family loved them and was around them. So that would be the gem I'd leave you with.
That's incredible, man. Beautiful. I love that. Love that. And then where can people find you? I know that you dropped it a little bit earlier on, but let's revisit that. Where can people find you, get a hold of you?
Yeah, definitely hit me up on LinkedIn, please. That's where I'm most active. You can email me too. You guys can share my email in the show notes, and that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, man, what an episode. Really appreciate you having you on. Incredible stuff. You guys are crushing it over at STR Cribs, and it was an absolute honor.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, guys. Super fun to talk with you. I love everything that you guys are doing on all fronts, and one of your biggest fans. So keep up the good work.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, that's a blue gem, and it really only took like 2 cribs on it being beat up by my girl, that pretty new Benz. I'm talking cash on cash.